Well, the research shows that it does matter. So when the mother is stressed, no matter what time period of the gestation in the womb, no matter how that fetus is, that stress will affect the baby after birth, and they'll be more irritable in general, which means they're more difficult to take care of easily. So it does have long-term effects. We have that pretty established with lots of different studies. So yeah, I think stress is a big deal. And we've I don't know why in the USA we somehow decided it's fine to stress families and kids to the nth degree. See how much stress we can get away with on them and still have people that function. So it's really a crazy upside down, topsy-turvy world we've created for children and families in the United States. We need family leave so that parents can actually attend to their kids without being distressed about getting to work and not if they don't breastfeed because they have to go back to work in a few weeks after birth. I mean, that's crazy stuff because these effects, being responsive to the needs of the child, breastfeeding, they have long-term, lifelong effects on the well-being of that child, their intelligence, their social capacities, their emotional intelligence. All sorts of things are affected in those first, in the womb, but also in the first months and years of life. I can talk to you about what we call the evolved nest, which has these characteristics that are really millions of years old, that we used to provide children as human beings, but we in civilized nations have moved farther and farther away from them, and especially in the USA in the last century. And it's having detrimental effects on health and well-being for all ages now. I think we can probably link these things directly to the health deterioration we have across the country. Do you want me to go through that? The nest?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So, I can expand this nest characteristics broader or narrower, and I'll broaden it a little bit by including that early preparation when the baby is in the womb of having the mother who is supported by her family, the community, so she feels calm most of the time because that's going to affect the way the baby is developing. And then she needs that support after birth too. We are meant and have evolved to need others as mothers, we call them allo mothers, to help the birth mother care for that baby well. And evidence from studies with other animals and with human mothers that if they don't feel supported by the community, they're not going to be as responsive to the needs of that child, which is detrimental for that child in the long term because their brain just doesn't develop as well when they're stressed or when they're ignored or when they're abused or neglected. So supportiveness when the mother's pregnant, supportiveness of the community after birth and through the life of that child is really important for the well-being and normal, optimal development of the child. So that's one thing. Another thing is the soothing perinatal experiences. That means you don't separate the mother and baby at birth. That's done routinely in most hospitals in the USA. That, can trigger depression in both of them because they're separated. And we've got postpartum depression epidemic in our society right now. The mothers get depressed and then they aren't very responsive to their babies because they're depressed. And then the baby's depressed and, they just don't get along.
And do you know what the increase of that is? Because it does seem like it's more common now than before.
I don't know. I don't have the figures. I should know that. But it has increased. I just don't know specifically.
Do you have a hunch on what your opinion might be on what you think might be causing that? Obviously, the separation is definitely probably one aspect of it, right?
Right. And then the lack of breastfeeding. So under normal, natural birth conditions, the baby triggers the birth by signaling to the mom's body that they're kind of ready to come. And so if you schedule a birth with a cesarean or you induce the birth with Pitocin, you are undermining that baby's kind of agency to be born. So there probably is an effect there. And flooding the mother's body with Pitocin, which is artificial oxytocin, also probably there's suspicion that undermines the baby's own oxytocin systems and then suppresses that. And the oxytocin hormone is the cuddle hormone, it's called often. It makes you feel good and at ease and all this. So there's a lot of physiological things that get messed up when you mess up the timing of that baby's birth. And so having it, so in a way that's traumatic to force the baby into the world before they're ready. And then the other things we do at birth, besides that separation, is painful procedures of various kinds, sticking the baby's foot with a needle or a pin, or, giving them vaccines or circumcision, all sorts of weird things, scrubbing them harshly, putting things in their eyes for gonorrhea, even though there's no reason to have gonorrhea concern for it. So there's a lot of procedures that were developed decades ago when they thought babies didn't feel anything. But they do.
Yeah,
and
so even circumcision, right? They've done studies that prove that sometimes they don't cry because they're in so much pain. They don't.
They're going into shock.
Yeah, they're in shock. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
So the mother not breastfeeding. So let me just say that there's a baby-friendly hospital initiative now that the USA has finally gotten on board on in 2011. At that time, so baby-friendly means mostly breastfeeding supportive, so they don't separate the mom. There's 10 principles. They don't separate the mom and baby at birth. They don't give the baby formula or sugar water, which happens routinely in the other hospitals. They help the mother with breastfeeding, that kind of thing. The baby-friendly hospital initiative then, which has been around since the 90s, and Sweden changed all their hospitals at that time, but it took us till 2011 to get going on it here. I think now we have maybe 15% of hospitals in the country, in the USA, are baby-friendly. And so that there's something there of following the rhythms of the mother and the baby's bodies, their relationship. That first hour after birth, there seems to be some magical quality to it. Of bonding that occurs. So the mom to baby skin on skin contact is really important. That's part of baby friendly. Some of the baby friendly hospitals, what they do now. And so I think if you don't follow those normal natural things, you're at a risk factor for, I think, depression and all sorts of other problems. They've done animal studies where they just separate a horse or a pig baby from its mother for an hour after birth, and then they watch it long term, and they find out that when they become an adolescent, they're kind of messed up. They don't get along very well. They have trouble with self-control.